Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Belief Breakthrough Show. For those of you who have not tuned in before and don't know who I am, my name is Tina Encarnacion, and I am an intuitive, energetic healer. And I love helping others get through their trauma, teaching them the steps that they need to take so that they are not drowning in victimhood. They can find inspiration and be empowered to heal themselves and take their power back. And part of this Belief Breakthrough Show is seeing that we are in a victimhood mentality when we're stuck there and breaking through the trauma that is holding us stuck, holding us blocked, and breaking through the belief that we're not good enough or that we're not lovable, we're not worthy, and being able to fall in love with ourselves all over again so that others can once again fall in love with us as well. And we can heal the broken wounds, the broken pieces of our soul. And so today, I'm so extremely excited to have Melissa on the show with us today. She is a phenomenal, inspirational woman. She has been through hell and back, and she's come up fighting, and she hasn't stopped swinging yet. And I'm so incredibly proud of her, and I can't wait for her to share her amazing story with you guys. Now, I want to remind you that this is an interactive show. So if you have questions or comments, you want to give her an inspiring word, lift her up, just comment below and we will be able to see your comments and questions on the screen and answer you in live time as we are talking and conversating with each other. So please join in the conversation, have fun, and ask all the questions you have. So with that being said, Melissa, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been through?
Yes. Hello, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm very honored to be here. I am Melissa Bickford, and I am a 53-year-old woman. I'm currently living in the state of Colorado, and I moved here about 17 years ago with a man and a child, and worked my way into the corporate world and did very well there. Worked up to a project manager level and was enjoying the corporate world to the best that you can, even though it sucks the soul out of you. Yes, it does. So during the final year of my corporate year, I met a man named Robbie, and he ended up moving into my house, and he ended up being an abuser. He was not so physical. He was more verbal, mental, throwing temper tantrums for 3-4 hours at a time, demanding that I pay everything for him while I'm trying to manage this project management career. And I was falling apart. And there was one point where I sat down in my living room and I felt my soul had just been sucked out of me. I felt that there was no will left for me to live except to provide this guy a house and to keep with my job. So I told somebody that there had been some abuse going on in the household, and he called the police. So he got arrested, and I was like, "Whew, okay. Thank God I have my job." Well, a week later, I got laid off. So that June was not a good month for me. As I started trying to assess what was going on with my situation, I met a man named Andrew, who I'd been friends with, and he hooked me up with an idea to start a food trailer. So I did that. We dated for a little bit. We broke up, and I went on my way. So I started working on this food trailer, which I successfully completed. During this time, though, I was going to the safe shelter because the situation with Robbie was still eating away at my soul. I didn't feel like I was getting enough help. I felt lost. I felt confused. I didn't really know what was going on, and I knew I needed some help. So I went to the safe shelter, and I was attending the group sessions that they have there and getting some individual therapy, which was amazing. And that's also when I first developed a real bond with women. Before that, I was, working in a man's world, you become very manlike.
Yes.
So, yes. So during this time, though, I was also drinking myself into oblivion because of the fact that I couldn't get the help that I needed. I had applied for therapy because remember, I didn't have a job now, and I applied for therapy through the city of Longmont. And 5 days before I got my letter for approval, I ended up getting a DUI. So now I've got the DUI on top of trying to deal with this trauma that I went through with Robbie. And I was hanging in there. I was starting to get the therapy. And then I went to court, and that court date threw me off. And I went to the bar and got drunk. And that's where I met Andrew again. So come to find out.
Was your original abuser?
So this was a guy I had dated who had given me the idea for the food truck.
Got it. Okay.
So we had just dated, but I didn't know he was an abuser at the time.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so he was very interested, and I was very kind of happy to have him back, as far as like, he was going to cook and it would be great. So he moved in. Now, one of the things that I have learned about abusers is that's what they do. They move in. So to any women out there, if he wants to move in within a week,
yes,
you might want to say no for at least another 6 months.
Mine did that too. It's like he came over one night and then he never left.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
This is my house.
I hear you, sister. I hear you. So so he moved right on in, and happen chance, the cook that I had lined up quit. So he said, well, I'll be the cook. Well, okay, you're living with me. Now you're going to be the cook, right? And since I had this little DUI problem, he was driving me around.
So he had everything.
He had everything. Except the money, of course.
Right.
And so everything was okay for the first 3 weeks. And then one night he slammed me down on the ground, and he had his hand around my neck. And I kind of, froze and said, what was that? Why did you do that? And he's like, I don't know. So it didn't happen again. And 2 weeks later, it happened again. And now we're at the end of May. And then he started getting more verbally controlling, more abusive, started kicking me out of my own food trailer, kicking me out of my garage. He would choke me when we drove. Through the month of June, the marks started to show up around my neck from the amount of times he strangled me to unconsciousness. And in July, when I decided that the food truck wasn't going as well as I wanted to because he was not doing what he needed to be doing, when I told him that it was no longer going to be a thing, that's when the beatings really started.
Now, can I pause you for a second? Because a lot of people that have never endured a abusive relationship before, they go, well, why did you ever let him stay after that first time? Right? You should have kicked him out that first time. And I want to go back and just kind of dig in a little bit deeper, because one thing that you said that stuck out to me, but I don't think will stick out to others that have not been through this situation, is you said the mental abuse started first. Right. And then the physical. So one thing these men do, they know what they're doing. It's almost like they're professionals. That's why we call them abusers, right? They like know exactly how to break you down, how to steal your worth, how to steal your security, how to steal your self-esteem, right? And so how can we go back a little bit, and how did he meticulously steal your freedoms from you, basically, right? Can you go into how mentally he came after you?
Oh, yes. One of the things is he was about a foot taller than me. So one of the things that a man like him who reacted with such violence is he would pick me up and throw me over his shoulder to show his strength and power. One time a guy was flirting with me, and he went and attacked the guy right in front of me. So he was showing me how strong he was and that he would attack. The other things that he did would be to, like I said, like we would be in the food trailer and he would kick me out in anger. He would throw things at me. So I would just step aside until his anger calmed down. You start, and it wasn't in so much the words, because I did get called a lot of names, of course, which you don't need to repeat on the show. But one of the things, it's more of the anger that they display sometimes so quickly almost becomes more powerful than any of the words that they say, because the words and the anger go together.
It's like the dominance. The display of dominance. Like,
yes, it is exactly. That's what it is. Yeah. It's the display of dominance that slowly creeps in, and you think you can handle it. You think you're fine because, an hour later they're fine. as if nothing happened.
Yes.
And so you think, oh, maybe it's in my head a little bit. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and so I have had that question asked of me. Why did you let him stay?
Yeah. It's
And
amazing. And we've
the
got
answer is
a
I
few
was
viewers
scared.
on here. So I want to remind the viewers that are listening and watching, you can just comment below and we'll be able to see your comments and answer your questions, and please be involved in the conversations. I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead and carry on.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm glad you backtracked me. So, so during the month of June, it started to get worse. And then once I told him that there was no more food trailer, that's when he really started assaulting me. And I don't remember the assaults. They would go on for about an hour or so. During the last couple of times, when it was on July 19th of 2019, it was 2 years ago, he savagely attacked me that night. He had dragged me off my bed unconscious, my head slammed to the ground. He punched me in my face a lot. I was bleeding and such like that. And I don't remember any of it except running from my house and going to my friend's house at 4:00 in the morning, begging her not to call the police. Because I was afraid that if she called the police, he would run and then come back and the beating would become worse.
Yeah.
So I went back. And so the next day I asked him what he did to me. And he calmly, very calmly informed me everything that he did, calmly told me that he wanted to kill me and that he couldn't stop beating me and that he really, really did want me dead. He told me that the next time he beats me, he will kill me and I will have to call the police on him. And I sat there and I just looked at him and there's this whole sense of disbelief that comes over you like a big blanket. You look at this person and you think, this cannot be actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
This can't be true. This is not my life.
It's
This
like
isn't what I signed up for.
You're like, that's not me. That's not me. It's like an out of body experience. Like, who is that person? Because that's not me.
Yes. Yes. And so it had gotten to that point where I was planning my death. I was starting to talk to my son about what assets he would like. I was trying to figure out how to transfer because in my mind, because I was so terrified of him, I was so afraid to say anything to anyone. I was so afraid the cops would not take him away. In my mind, the only way out was to die. So the next time he beat me, I finally called for help because he had attacked me in a public place. He had strangled me outside a bar. And I went to unconsciousness so the bartender took care of me for the night. They brought me home. He was here. We didn't know. He attacked me. He bit me actually all in my face, left teeth marks in my face and punched me to the floor. And the police found me naked in my driveway with a towel. He was still outside kicking me and screaming at me. And I was bloody. My face was swollen. And all I could do was tell the police to get away from me. You're going to make it worse. You're going to make it worse. You're going to make it worse. Naturally, thank God, they did not listen to me.
So at that point, did you begin the path to recovery, or did you let him back in after that?
He was arrested.
Okay.
He was arrested.
And
I went to the hospital. And called my safe shelter counselor, Mary Jo. And she came. And for her, it was a very unusual situation as well, because a lot of times they get to us after we've already been through the abuse.
Yeah.
This was the first time where she'd been helping somebody and and this person got beat the way I got beat. And it developed a very interesting bond between us. And so she's been a great help in my healing. The safe shelter has been a great help in my healing. He spent the rest of the time in jail. He is currently in prison right now.
And you had to testify against him. Is that correct?
There was no trial.
Okay.
He went ahead and pled guilty to a reduced plea deal. We went from 17 counts of assault down to 3. Which is still not fair. And that is one thing that I think all women need to men too, any victim of abuse needs to understand is when you go through the court systems like we do, you are not going to get the justice you want.
No.
But what you do get is every single time you stand before that guy while he's shackled up and you're not anymore shackled up,
Mhm.
And he's the one going to prison, and he's the one who now has this incredibly horrible life. There is some justice there in that
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
And now it's a record. And the next woman that he goes to attack, now he's got a much larger record. I
Mhm.
did not know that the man that I had been living with had been arrested 14 times. I was actually his seventh domestic violence um, arrest. The Colorado system failed me in
Mhm.
that they should have punished him after the fifth time.
Yeah. I feel like almost like abusers, there should be like a domestic abuse register, like there's a sex offender
Yes.
register, because for people that, and I didn't stand up to my offender. I ran from him and I hid from him, and I didn't call the officers because I was too embarrassed. I had always judged other women that had been in abusive relationships. It was always like, well, I would just leave. I would just call the cops. I wouldn't put up with that until I found myself in my abusive relationship. And it took this man less than 3 weeks to tear me down and believe that I was a piece of trash and not even my family would like me. And it was just so disgusting. And so I didn't call the cops because I was too embarrassed. I ran and I hid. I quit my job. I changed everything. But I was not the first abuse victim either. And so I feel like if there's some kind of registration where we can be forewarned, where people, women, men can stand up to their abusers and potentially save lives after us. I mean, I
Yes.
feel like that needs to happen.
Yes. Yes. I have heard talk of that, by the way, but I don't know if it's ever actually come to fruition.
Mhm.
Um, with this particular individual, there isn't one DA, one judge, one person who knows him who does not believe that he won't kill when he gets out.
Yeah.
Um, and so for that reason, I've been working with the DA's office and of course the investigators here on how to handle that situation. Um, but um, there it's an amazing thing that when you go and you see this guy go through the court process and you do your victim impact statement, right, which to
Yeah.
anyone who goes through this process, you must absolutely let the judge hear you, no matter how hard it is to get up there and speak. It is in a way the most empowering thing you can do is to get up and speak your story to the judge and have that judge hear you.
Mhm.
um, and they have to be written well, as also my advice is you don't want to get into the emotional part, he this. You want to be just straight, very factual, and how it affected your life.
Now, did you have a domestic violence advocate help you create your statement?
I um I did not have I had help, but I did not ask for help on that particular item.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did have victim advocate that were working through the DA's office and with the safe shelter. So I had those people helping me as well while I was going through the court process.
Mhm. And it's really important, right, to have a team of support, people there to help you, because when you're going through that, you go into some dark times, some dark places. And if you don't have a strong team surrounding you to pull you out of those places or to crawl down there with you and hold you while you need to be there, you can truly lose your life.
Yes. Yeah. And that first year, that very first year, now you also have to remember during this time, I did not know that I had a brain injury
Mhm.
from all the strangulation that he did and from all of and from being dropped on my head and punched in the head. So I'm doing trauma therapy. I'm going to court and I'm still just not feeling right, and I had a suspicion something else was more wrong with me. So it took a while before I was able to get to actually be able to make that doctor appointment for the neurologist. And once I got down that path, that's when they did the MRIs, they did the CT scans. And remember, all this time I'm also still dealing with my DUI stuff, going on probation, doing community service, right, not working, dealing with this complete trauma and the court, and wondering when he's going to pay the $300 to get out on bail, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
and and it was a lot. So I wanted to die very many times during that first year. I came very close to suicide, multiple times. And every time there was for lack of a better word, an angel, that somebody stepped in, a person that is no longer in my life today. There were a couple times when I felt like some wings were wrapped around me, holding me and letting me know that I'm still meant to be here.
Yeah.
And those were little glimpses of hope for me, because that first year I had zero hope. I did not think I was going to make it at all. With the added brain injury also came for me a nervous disorder. So I have a rare nervous disorder called pseudobulbar effect. And if anyone's seen the movie The Joker, which most people have, that disorder that he has is the exact same one I have.
Wow.
And so it's real. So you take medication for it, which is why I'm not acting like the Joker. But it does cause laughter and tears and all this kind of stuff. So that can only happen from a very severe brain injury.
Okay.
So I'm going to step forward a little bit into how that affected my life. I know that obviously through PTSD and anxiety, I've been living in fear. I have a 911 necklace courtesy of my friend Angela. I lock my doors a lot. I'm always looking over my shoulder. That intensity of always being on and always looking for someone who's going to hurt you wears you down. And that anxiety is really, really hard on the body.
Yeah.
And it drains our prefrontal lobe. So it makes it really hard to think. So one of the things that really irked me through this whole process was how hard it was for me to get actual real help to help me heal. I had to find the neurologist. I found the brain injury group that I work with, and I did a mentorship program with them. And how I got onto the real path of fighting. I'm not somebody who can be a counselor. Okay. So I am not a good coach. and it made me realize that in order for me to heal and to fight, right, I'm a fighter. So how can I fight, right? What can I do to make a difference in this? Because I think a lot of women who go through abuse, or men as well, or trans gender women and men, I think we all feel like we want to help somehow. We want to do something. We want to make a difference, right? But how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you really find that path?
Right.
Because not everyone can be a counselor, right? And I'm not a counselor. And so happen chance, I was looking for parole help. I knew that I would have to face the parole hearing soon enough. And mine is actually next November, in a month. So that's his first parole hearing. He's only been in prison 1 year. So my life has been completely taken away from me, but he only gets 1 year in prison out of a 6-year prison sentence, right? So that seems fair, right?
So hopefully they won't bring parole.
Hopefully, I have a pretty good case to keep him in. But so I was looking for help, and I ran across this group called Voices of Victims. So I started talking to the guy. His name was Joe. And I was telling Joe about my story and stuff, and how I just feel like there's something I can do. What can I do? And he says, you might be more interested in this other group. And it was called the Colorado Victims of Justice. And so I called up the guy, Ray, and I told him, and Ray said, you might be perfect for our group. And I went, okay. And of course, this is during COVID, right? So nobody's meeting in person. I have no idea who these people are. I don't know where they live. And I started going to their meetings. And little by little, I found that this group of people, they actually are a big part of making legislative changes here in Colorado.
That's
and
awesome.
It is awesome. And one of the ladies on there, she was single-handedly responsible for getting past the making strangulation a felony.
Wow.
So she's part of this group, and the people in this group are very well connected with the Congress people. They're very involved, and I just glowed when I realized, oh my God, I found my home. They're my home. These people are it. and so I wanted to be. I wanted to. How do you become part of a group, right? That's the hard part. So I volunteered to take their meeting notes because I can do that. And they were so relieved. Now they have someone doing their meeting notes. So now I'm part of the group. Okay. So last year in Colorado, they passed a brain injury bill for offenders. So now if you're an offender, you get your screening. And if you have a brain injury as an offender, you can get help. But what about the victims?
I was just going to say that sounds backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. There was no victim support in this bill. So when we were talking, so last year also what I volunteered to do was to track the bills, right? And
Okay.
so I was tracking the bills, and through that, that's where I saw this brain injury bill come up for offenders. And I brought it up to the group and I said, this is wrong. This is not fair. And I said, I went through hell trying to fix my brain, trying to fight for myself, trying to find doctors or anybody who could help someone who'd been domestically beaten with the brain injury and having a rare nervous disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. So the groups, I said, I want us to pass a bill for victims.
Yeah.
And they said,
that,
yeah,
right?
And we're doing it.
Yeah.
We are doing it. And we are actually working on proposing making a change to the Victims' Rights Act in Colorado that says on there, victims of violent crimes have a right to a brain screening. And just today, which is this is very exciting. Just today, I got 2 Congress people, a senator and a representative, who are very interested in talking about the details of this bill. And yes, it is completely amazing. Yes, thank you. And we want to run a pilot program and set up a screening process and set up education for the district attorneys and for the victims advocates. It'll take a lot of work and it'll take time and it'll take a little bit of money and funding and all that. But I think that once I can get people to understand how important this is, and we've generated a lot of excitement around it, I think we can make it happen. Maybe not fully this year, but most likely next year if it can't happen this year.
At least the ball's rolling, right?
Yeah, the ball is rolling.
Now,
so
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's where I go back to when I said you have to find your own path. I think for me, this was my path. Like, I get really excited talking about Congress and making these changes, right? And other people go, oh, okay.
Absolutely.
That's fun for you.
Right. Now, I understand that this has become your passion, right? Working with Congress, trying to be the advocate, the voice for other victims like yourself. But you had to do some work prior to getting to that point, prior to finding your voice, right? So in this show, I like to really show the steps you have to take. And like we had talked about, when you go through some kind of trauma, it's really easy to get stuck in victimhood, to get stuck in that cycle of woe is me. I'm different than everybody else. No one has experienced something like me. I'll never be accepted in society again because this awful, horrible thing has happened to me, right? And it's just this cycle that just continues and it almost re-traumatizes you, right? And so what steps did you have to take in your journey to get to the place where you were strong enough to have a voice again?
That's a really, really good question. And I still see people stuck in that mode. And it is, you are right, it is re-traumatizing. I think, honestly, for me, and I don't know if this could and would apply for other people, I think for me, I told anyone who talked to me that first year, it is all I talked about is what he did to me. And I talked about it so much until it lost its power. And you brought up shame. And there is a lot of shame. And I was so angry at what he did to me that what I did is I went out to every place that he went, to every bar, to every restaurant without makeup on, showing the black eyes, the swollen face, the bite mark on my ear, my face, right? And I showed everyone what he did because because too many people live in shame of what's going on behind those closed doors. And I
Yeah.
wanted people to know. So for me, I had this anger inside of me that really drove me.
Mhm.
Um, then then I sunk into Great Depression. Then I felt different.
Yeah.
Then I felt like nobody wanted to hear the story anymore.
Mhm.
Then I felt like I shouldn't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, you get tired of your own voice.
You get tired. You do. You get
Mhm.
tired of being in your own story.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to move forward somehow. And moving forward, I think, is probably the hardest thing in the world to do when you come back from abuse. Um, I think what really helped me were my friends, the ones that were around when I was falling down, when I was crying. Um, I think having them call me when they were crying, I think the support group that you had mentioned was one of the key things that actually prevented me from killing myself. Um, and we became closer together because we realized that we felt different from everyone around you, right? And
Yeah.
so you do end up being with more people who have been through trauma because it's
Mhm.
easier for all of you to relate together.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also therapy.
Mhm.
I did a lot of talk therapy, and I also did cognitive behavioral therapy, which even if you don't have a brain injury, people with PTSD, your prefrontal lobe is still slowing down. You
Mhm.
still need to be able to think, and get out of that mode. If you can't think, you can't move forward.
Right.
So, and I don't think people realize how strong PTSD is,
Yeah.
and how much as an abuse victim we really suffer greatly from PTSD.
Right. And if you don't address it, talk therapy is amazing. For me, I found that talk therapy didn't do very much for me, unfortunately. But I do feel like you have to find that thing that helps you to move forward, right? For me, I
Mhm.
didn't want to. I was like you. I was tired of my own voice, right? I needed to
Yeah.
move forward. I knew I needed a change, and so for me, what I started doing was Reiki energy healing. Saved my life. And I did do the cognitive therapy as well, which also was profound in my healing process.
Mhm.
But I couldn't be stuck in that negative energy anymore. And
Yeah.
like you said, I had anger boiling up inside me so much so that I would physically want to hurt people. I would
Yes.
I would want to just I wanted them to feel the pain that was stuck inside me. And it would make me feel better if I could see pain on their face, which is really sickening to admit, but that's where I was. I was
Mhm.
stuck in so much pain that I needed everyone else around me to feel my pain. And it got to the point where my pain was making me physically ill and I needed to find a way out.
Yes.
And so going and acknowledging that something was wrong, right? Because that's another thing.
Yeah.
We would rather sit in the victim and say, "Woe is me! I'm this way because of this person," and point the fingers. But no, it was me. I was the one that was keeping myself stuck. I was the one that was feeding into the negativity. I was the one that was causing other people pain that weren't causing me pain. I was making them suffer because what I had gone through, right?
I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah,
I
sitting there,
love that.
you have to realize it, and then you have to point the finger inwards and go, this is my fault too, because I'm allowing myself to stay in this position.
Yep.
I'm doing this to myself and I'm doing it to everyone around me, and no matter what I need to do, I'm going to find a way out, right?
Yep. Yep. You touched that was perfect. That was completely perfect. I had such rage, and it did almost cost me my family,
Mhm.
because you said it so much better than I think I've ever put it out in my own head. Is I would lash out at my family so hard, and it was exactly as you said. I needed them to feel my pain. I needed them to understand how much I was hurting inside, how much I was not doing well, how much I needed help, and I didn't know how to ask for that help. And
Mhm.
the only way I knew was to stomp my feet and scream at the top of my lungs, and just be angry, and literally push everyone away from me.
Yeah, yeah.
And my family wouldn't allow that.
You're
And
very lucky.
I am so blessed right now. My dad has jumped in. We were a little estranged for many years, and through this trauma, my dad and I bonded back together, and it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in my life. And I don't think he's watching the show, but um, and it brought my mom and I closer together, and my brother and I closer together, and even my cousin. And those are some of the lemonades that have come out of these lemons that have been thrown at me. I and I agree with you. I think that I was thinking earlier about, how you pull yourself out of being that victim, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I went through was, first you start deleting the pictures, you know, then don't delete the pictures that show the abuse ever. You need to keep those forever in reality. But you can delete the kissy pictures, you can delete the texts that don't matter. You can throw away the love cards, the love notes, the post-it notes that they leave you saying, "Good morning, sunshine," after they were screaming at you for 3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Every time you take that step to disassociate yourself with that person, I think you become more and more powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the real key, though, is to never, ever speak to that person again, ever.
Absolutely. Another thing is to be grateful. I wouldn't say grateful for the abuse, but grateful for the experience, because what you went through grew you stronger, and it almost upgraded you to a point that makes you unbreakable. And
Yes.
so a lot of us feel so weak and shattered, but when you realize I survived, I got myself out and I did that. I'm the one who said, it's me and me alone, right? And so
Yeah.
to give yourself the honor, to give yourself the gratitude, to give yourself the love, the forgiveness for being put in that situation, for allowing yourself in that situation, right? But to take the lessons so that you can shed the pain. Because once you realize this wasn't against me, it was for me, so that I could grow and so that I could expand and so that I could feel my strength and embrace your strength. That's something that's really important. Now, a lot of people have been upset for me for saying that. I should never have been abused. I should never have gone through this. I won't accept that there's good things in this. But there are. There's no such thing as coincidence in this life. And you were meant to go through this for a reason. So gosh darn it, find the damn reason so you can move forward.
Yes, exactly. And I understand completely what you're saying about that, because in the cognitive processing therapy I'm currently doing, right? It is one of the things where how was I a part of this process?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest with you, that has been the toughest question ever to
Mm-hmm.
answer, is how I was a part of this.
Yeah.
And yes, no, I did not ask to be hit. I did not ask to be strangled. I did not ask to be threatened to killed, almost killed. Uh, but I survived it. And I am stronger for it. And one of the words that I found that I prefer over strong is actually courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Because in our safe shelter, we talked a lot about being told we were strong, but we feel so weak. We feel shattered. We feel like we are a nothing person now because of what we went through. We let this guy do these things to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have looked up these words, and courage is more what we have. We are courageous because we keep on going despite the fact that we just want to stay in bed and curl up in the covers and just forget the world even exists, but we keep pulling ourselves up every single day. And even on those bad days, those are the bad days, you still got to just remember tomorrow is a new day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I tell my clients over and over again. I say, today may not have been that good, but tomorrow you can be a completely different person.
That's
Tomorrow
right.
you get to choose your destiny. You get to choose the steps you take. Are you going to repeat today, or are you going to start fresh?
That's right. Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only way to pull yourself out of the victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about mantras when I was deep in. I forgot to say, I went through a phase where every day I woke up, and it actually worked, believe it or not. Every day I woke up, and this was the beginning of this year, I would say, today is going to be the best day ever. And you know what? Something really awesome would happen every single day. So I do believe in, you do have to speak those words to yourself again. You have to relearn how to love yourself and how to find that love again, and to forgive yourself a lot.
Yeah. Or also, if you've never had that love for yourself, Because I know for me, I never loved myself. I didn't think I was worthy of love. I didn't
Mhm.
feel like I was deserving. So I was always
Mhm.
finding the wrong men. I was looking
Mhm.
for the love I felt like I never had. And I was finding men that were like, that's an amazing victim. I can get her. Right. And so almost like you're having to learn to fall in love with the person you wish you were because you don't believe she's already there or he's already there. Right. But they are. They're there. They're inside you. No one will ever love you or cherish you the way that you will. Right. Everyone has
Yeah.
an ulterior motive but yourself.
You
And
know,
so,
and you said something really good there. You said about the loving who you are. You know, we will never be that person. And that
right.
person actually that we think we loved, that's actually not the person that we're falling in love with. We're falling in love with a new person. And
Right.
I think that's a really key point. A lot of people get stuck, well, I want to be this person again. I want to be that person. In actuality, that person is kind of what happened.
That's
You know?
true. Yeah. So many of my clients come in for healing and they say, I lost who I was. I want to find her again. I want to
Right.
find her
Yes.
again. But you know what? You're right. You will never be that person again because you're stronger. You're more courageous. You're more empowered. You've survived what they went through and that changed you. Right.
And
And
I'll
so
tell you, I'm way more feisty than I ever have been in my life.
good. Because the thing is that, and that's another thing is these abusers, these predators, as I like to call them,
They
uh,
are.
they don't like feisty. They don't want someone who's going to push back. They don't want
That's right.
resistant.
That's
And
right.
so if you're resistant, if you stand up for yourself, they'll find the way to the door faster than you'll find a way to get them there.
Yep. That is so true. That is so
Mhm.
true. Very,
Absolutely.
very good words.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for coming on this show. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, I appreciated the talk with you. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. For all of the viewers out there, if you enjoyed today's episode and if it made you realize that you are needing to take those action steps to heal from your trauma and begin to embrace yourself and fall in love with the new you all over again, my Finding Direction course is in the chat. It's a free online course. It's a mini course, only 5 modules, and it will point you in the right direction. It will get you on the steps and the path to healing and on the way to falling in love with the new you. Thank you again for tuning in.